Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam. I'm Jordan Jorgensen. With me is Matt Long and Aaron Jackson. How are we doing today, guys?
Doing great, thanks.
So also
doing pretty good.
What was that, Aaron? So forgive me if I keep looking over. Two of us are in the same room, so it's a little bit awkward because I want to look at Matt, but then I remember he's on the screen. So we're a little awkward in that. But yes, this is a sports jam, our weekly Gold Country Media sports show. We're going to be discussing everything with all the teams in our area. So, if you're a fan of anyone in the SFL, we've got pretty much everyone in that league covered. We've got teams in the CVC, the FEL, the CAL, PBL, all around the area. We'll be discussing high school sports, and this one specifically high school football. So I guess we'll just kind of dish it off and get this thing started. The SFL is the big league out here. We've all got a team in it that we cover. You've got Del Oro, Matt, you've got Folsom and Oak Ridge, Aaron, you've got Rockland, Granite Bay, and Whitney. So let's just kind of start with a little preview of the SFL and what we're expecting out of that league.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's definitely fair to say about the SFL is we're probably going to be looking at something that we saw similar to last year, and that is going to be a battle between Folsom and Rockland for supremacy of who's going to win the league. And one thing that's for sure is, Folsom with Rico Flores and Walker Lyons, it's going to be really hard to stop that duo. Folsom's got a lot of firepower offensively. Rockland does have a lot of fairly solid running backs coming back for them, and Eli Hardy, Mason Silva. It's going to be really interesting to see how that matchup plays out, because that's going to be the final week of the season. And of course, by then, who knows what happens when it comes to injuries, when it comes to, a plethora of other things that can happen in the first 9 games. But I think that one thing to expect is it's going to be a battle between those two teams, and they could very well be the top 2 teams in the Sac Joaquin section.
Matt, what about you? What are you thinking about the SFL, especially where, we've seen it be Folsom's league in the past? Are you expecting the same this year?
I am. It comes down to the play of the quarterback. Austin Mack Jr. and Carter Martinelli Sr. last year had their struggles after Tyler Tremaine got hurt. Obviously, we hope, for Folsom fans hope, that this year they'll take a step and be better. They're going to have to be better than they were last year. So if that happens, and I think it will, I think they'll be better. Folsom's got more than enough skill to win the league. So it just comes down to their play of their quarterback, Austin Mack. And Coach Doherty said that they're starting with him. He's going to get every chance to win the job and to do the job, I should say. And if he can't do it, then they'll have to go to they'll take a look at Carter Martinelli or another senior, Julian Vasquez. So, yeah, so I think Folsom's definitely the front runner.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, that league's going to be so tough because, as we were saying kind of off camera, Matt, before we started, the biggest problem with the SFL is someone has to finish last. And you have 6 of the best teams in the area, and sadly, someone's going to be the odd man out. A team that interests me in that league, you're kind of talking about, is Oak Ridge. Because they're going to be much improved this year. They solved a lot of that league. It's actually funny. We agreed that one of the weaknesses I put for Del Oro, we said strength and weaknesses. I said the league, just because that league is so brutal. And Del Oro is actually an interesting team for me because they actually still, as of today, I have not gotten word on who the starting quarterback is going to be yet. There's been a battle between Jacob Hamilton, who took over last year when Ryan Lewis was hurt, and Caden Pinnick, who was the JV quarterback last year, who stepped up and had a pretty impressive camp. And both of them are just killing it. I don't think you can really go wrong with either team or with either one as your starter. But that's something that I find interesting in the SFL this year. And as you said, Aaron, I think it's a 2-horse race up front. I think the battle is going to be who's going to take that 3rd place spot. Is it going to be Granite Bay? Is it going to be Del Oro? Is it going to be Whitney? Or even Oak Ridge? All 4 of those teams can conceivably take that 3rd place spot. They're all pretty evenly matched. And as far as I'm concerned, the SFL is by far the best league in this area, and it looks to be that way once again this year.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I do think it will be between Granite Bay and Del Oro for that third spot. Granite Bay, they should have a solid run game. They should also have a solid defense. They've got a couple players coming back defensively, such as Frank Cusano, who was actually on the Granite Bay rugby team who won the national title back in the spring. So I think that is definitely giving them some momentum when it comes to football season. But also, as I mentioned, CJ Herring, a heck of a running back from last season who led the team with over 900 or over 800 yards. It's going to be a tough battle. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how those two teams play. But you mentioned it. The SFL is so crazy every year. Anything can happen. And Whitney just got a heck of a transfer from Sheldon and Isaiah Bickham, who's going to come very big for their offense as they've lost a fair amount of pieces. But they've also got, Jacob Smiley. They've got Trevor Hargis. They're both probably going to both get reps. I mean, there's so much talent in the SFL that it is so hard to choose. I would personally probably go Granite Bay, Del Oro, Whitney for 3 or 5. But I mean, all 3 of those teams are probably going to be right around the ballpark of 5 to 7 wins, and they may even be the same at the end of the season. And you could have a team that's 5th make a bigger playoff run than the team that finishes 3rd. I mean, it's anything can happen with the SFL. That's what makes it so exciting.
I fully agree there. And kind of pivoting into some of these other leagues, I think maybe we can take a look at another one of these leagues that's going to be really a dogfight. And Aaron, it's kind of a league that only you're covering, but the CVC, I mean, with Antelope, Intercom, Yuba City, none of the schools you're actually covering, but just that league in general, where do you think Wood Creek kind of fits into that?
Fighting for 3rd, because I really think that, I'm going to put this in my prediction piece that's going to come out later this week. I don't see any team in the regular season stopping Antelope. I think that behind Folsom and Rockland, they're the best offense in the area right now. You've got Karan Borders, who's a senior that's coming off of a 2,000+ yard season with over 20 touchdowns. I don't see any reason why he doesn't do that again unless, something crazy happens or, hope it doesn't happen, of course, but barring injury. And then you've got their quarterback returning, you've got the top receiver returning. The Antelope's got a lot of talent defensively that's coming up from JV, and a lot of talent that played last season as well. Antelope to me is probably the most well-rounded team in that league, and I just don't think anybody's going to be able to stop them in the regular season. But also, Yuba City is going to be a really tough team as well. They've got Nick Afado returning, who should be one of the best quarterbacks around the area. I don't think Wood Creek, even though I think a lot of people are probably going to expect that Wood Creek won't have as good of a season, just because if you look at the trends over the last 6, 7, 8 years, when they've had a season over 500 like they did in 2018, they responded and weren't really able to have a lot of success. I don't see that big of a drop off this year because they do still have a lot of key role players such as Brody Cup, Aaron Kay. They've got Connor Rojas and Austin Catapotis that are both probably going to get reps at quarterback, and a lot of other talent too on the offensive and defensive line. I don't think they're going to be under 500, but I do think they're going to have a tough fight for 3rd. I think they're going to be 6-4, be right in that hunt. They'll be a playoff team, but I just don't think the CVC in terms of winning it is something that's realistic for that Wood Creek team right now.
I agree. I think that league is just too much to go for. And kind of pivoting into another league, a team that really was a good playoff team last year and is returning a lot of talent. Vista Del Lago this next year in the CAL is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Matt, what are you expecting out of this team?
I'm expecting similar to what they did last season. They finished 2nd to Capital Christian in the league. That was their only loss in league play, and I think they can do that again. It's going to come down to quarterback play. Johnny Kent is a junior. It's his first year. Well, he was a varsity backup last year, but first time to prove himself. So, Kyle Landis, head coach, has full faith in him. Johnny's confident. He feels he can do it. So until I see him play, I'm going to go ride with what they say, and I think their offense will be fine. They're going to run 2 running backs this year. Usually they've featured 1 for several years, but Thomas Pegan is going to, and Xavier Bryan are going to be the 2 running backs. They got 2 junior offensive linemen who are going to be Brandon Nasworth and Andrew Powers, who Coach Landis is really high on both of them. He said Nasworth will definitely be playing D1 ball, and Powers could be. And their wide receiving core, Matt Long, their relation, he's back for his junior year, and he had a coming out party last year. He had a great season, and he's only going to get better. So I think this is, I think they'll be second in their league, and they'll be a good team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Vista is really a force to be reckoned with again. And, we've had some tough battles between Placer and Vista in the last couple of years. I think they've met 8 times in 7 years, and they're split 4-4 right now. So I guess this year will be the rubber match of that. But it's kind of one of those things where maybe it's not a rivalry to the fans, but I think that it's becoming a rivalry to the coaches and the players. So kind of pivoting, as we mentioned, Placer, onto the FVL, another one of the tougher leagues, probably the best D3, one of the better D3, D4. I guess I won't say the best D3, D4, because there's a lot of good leagues out there, and the CAL could be in that. But the FVL this year, I mean, Lincoln had their day last year. I find a tough time seeing a world where Placer doesn't win the FVL this year. But what I really am interested in is that second place battle. I think that's going to happen between Lincoln and West Park. Aaron, what do you kind of think about that since you covered both those teams?
Yeah, it's going to be, honestly, I think it's going to be a 3-way battle for first. I do think that Placer will pull away with it, because the thing is, Lincoln has still got a lot of good pieces. They've got Ryan Henning, who is already committed before starting the season, and he's their running back. I would expect him to be right around 2,000 yards this season. He's going to be big. They lost a lot of key players defensively. That's where they're going to be hurting. The FVL MVP, Jordan Wagner. They lost their defensive player of the year. They lost a lot of pieces, but they do still have some talent returning when it comes to their secondary. It's going to be really interesting to see how Thomas Mukai throws the ball for them this year after playing under Johnny Bowser. I do think that Lincoln team is still going to be very good, but I'm with you. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Placer this time around. West Park, as you mentioned, the one thing that they have going for them versus any other team in the area in any league is that they haven't graduated any of their players, because they were just a junior only team last season who actually won a league. And this year, of course, it's going to be much more difficult going into the Foothill Valley League, but they've gotten exponentially better ever since the end of last season. And keep in mind that their playoff game last year, after winning 6 games in a row, was against Placer, and they put up a battle in that game for the first 2.5 quarters. So, I think it's going to be honestly a 3-horse race for first. I have it as Placer, Lincoln, West Park, but you could have 3 of those teams that all have 7 wins, or right around 6 to 7 wins, and will be forces come playoff time. So I would go Placer, Lincoln, West Park, but I think West Park could take down one of Lincoln or Placer, and it's going to be a really interesting race.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I wouldn't really want to run into any of those teams come November, because I think all 3 of them are going to be a force. Kind of staying in our area, where, I'm sorry, Matt, you don't have any schools in this area, so it's going to be the Aaron and Jordan show for a minute. But the PBL is another league that's just going to be a dogfight. And Colfax, the defending champions, are returning a lot of talent. But the problem is they are welcoming in a team, or 2 newcomers to the league, one of them being Wheatland, the other being Sutter, who has not lost a league game in, I think it's 7 years. And it's just been a force in the northern section, and it's probably just going to pick up right where they left off as they enter into the PBL. How do you kind of see that race shaking out? Where do you see 12 Bridges kind of fitting into there, Aaron?
Yeah, I think 12 Bridges is obviously inspired from what West Park did last season. The fact that they were able to make it to playoffs and were able to win a league as a junior-only team. This league, in all due respect to West Park, is going to be a lot more difficult than the league that West Park was in last year. I think it's going to be really hard for any team to beat out Sutter. I don't think Sutter has lost a league in about 7 years now. And, like, as you mentioned, Colfax is going to be a really tough team as well. I think 12 Bridges is going to be right around third or fourth with about 5 to 6 wins. I do think they will make playoffs, and they'll probably have to travel relatively far for an away game for playoffs. But I think they would take that. I think that the 12 Bridges team right now is just looking to try to just build a culture. And that's one thing. I've known Coach Chris Bean over there for about 8 or 9 years now. And the number one thing is he wants to build a football culture for success. And I think that's what this season is going to be all about, is trying to get some wins to get this team really pumped up and inspired and give them a playoff chance to make it to the playoffs. And I think they would take that right now. I don't think they're going to be fighting for a league championship by any stretch of the imagination. I have it right now as Sutter, Colfax, Wheatland, 12 Bridges. Those are my top 4 teams, and I think that's something we could pretty much expect to see.
I'm kind of with you on that. I think Colfax is in a position where they could challenge Sutter. They've got a lot of talent on that team. They've got some young pieces. They have a lot of weapons, and I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's a new coach, it's a new coach. Well, Jason Stowers is probably the best hands Tony Martello could have left that program in. He's been under him for years. He knows that system. Stowers is, I can speak personally, a great coach. I played for him at Del Oro. He ended up going on to Wood Creek, doing great things there. And then back at Colfax as defensive coordinator and now the head guy. It's going to be pretty much the same system with a little bit of a twist because there are some new things there. But I think in the PVL, that's probably the only team that really is going to challenge Sutter too much. I think Wheatland could, just because it's a familiar opponent. And then 12 Bridges and Bear River both have a lot of talent. Marysville also the same way, but I think that league right now is Sutter's to lose. And one last one to talk about, the SMAL. That one is going to be an interesting league. It's kind of been, Woodland Christians kind of had a Sutter situation over the years there, where it's really been their league to lose. This year, I think they're still the favorites in it, but I think you were getting an angry Forest Hill team that finished second last year that did not like how last season ended, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But their coach at the season previews told me, we're going for Woodland Christian this year. Like, we want to beat them. We have them at our house where they were undefeated last year. I mean, Forest Hill is going to be hot on their tail this year.
Yeah, and the 2 teams that I've got in the league are Valley Christian Academy in Roseville, and then Western Sierra Collegiate Academy over in Rockland. And Valley Christian had their first 4-win season last year since 2008. I don't expect them to improve off of that, just because of the fact that they lost one of the best players they've seen in a long time in Brady Myers. He's graduating, going to be going over and playing in Kentucky. I do think they still have some pieces returning on offense, such as Chase Clary, that will help Matthew Larson. I think Valley Christian will be a 4-win team again, but I just don't see them being 500 or making the playoffs. But I think that I think that's good for them. I think, maintaining that same level of success will be good for them for the future as well. Western Sierra had a really tough go at it last year. They didn't win a single game. They're under new coaching this year under Otis Washington. Plus, they have some experience from the players who played last season. I'm expecting them to pick up a couple 2 or 3 win team. But I'm with you. I do think Forest Hill is going to be competing for a league championship against Woodland Christian. I still think Woodland Christian might edge them out by a game, but I think Forest Hill
Aaron, I'm losing you a little bit. My Wi-Fi is getting laggy. Aaron, can you hear me? I guess all right. Well, with any show, I guess we're gonna have some technical difficulties, and that being one of them. All right. Well,
can you guys
them. Aaron, can you hear me? Aaron, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Yep. There we go. Technical difficulties,
okay,
I guess, on the first day of the show, to be expected. But we got it all worked out. Let's kind of pivot now a little bit over to the kind of what we expect from each of our teams, more of a team preview, just a quick little thing of, maybe some key players, the keys to the season, and what you're expecting out of this. And then we will end with each of us maybe previewing the matchup of the game we're going with. Matt, why don't we start with you and your three schools you cover?
All right. Well, I didn't get too much of a chance to talk about Oak Ridge earlier when we were talking about where we're going to finish. But I think, with the 3 wins last year, there's only one way to go for them, and that's up. And I think they will go up. All the players, each player said the team chemistry is much better this year. The team bond is tight. The senior class is motivated. And they got a lot of guys coming back that didn't like what happened last year. So, and that was Casey Taylor's first year at Oak Ridge, late hire. I mean, first year with a new coach, new system, but they're back. Maddox Varela's will be the quarterback. He quarterbacked most of the games last year after earning the starting job. Jake Hall, big running back. He's going to get the ball a lot. And Dwight Martin is a smaller guy. He's fast, who features speed, and Jake Hall is more of a fullback type. So they got the thunder and lightning combination there. Their offensive line averages 270. They're huge, so they're going to run the ball. And Coach Casey Taylor loves their tight end group, and he said their tight ends may catch more passes than their wide receivers. So they got Caleb Evers, who's only a sophomore, but he's 6'7", and he's going to create some mismatches. And Gavin Malloy and Kai Reisinger are also in that group. And their top wideout is Sebastian Sutton, who was injured last year, but Taylor expects big things out of him too. So I think, defense. Let's talk about defense. Their linebackers are their strength, and that's one of the reasons why Taylor decided to switch to a 3-man front this year. Last year they played a 4-man front. Linebackers: Connor Dasman, Colin James, Jake Hall again, Gavin Malloy, Nolan King. Strength of that defense. They're looking to create turnovers this year. They didn't have as many as they wanted last year, but the defense was better than the offense last year. But this year the offense is going to be better. So I think the key for Oak Ridge, I think they're going to have to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage, and Taylor feels they can do that. They didn't do that last year. They couldn't do it last year, but this year they can. And I think they'll be fighting for that third place spot in the league. It's going to be a log jam, but I wouldn't count them out. So Oak Ridge is going to be much improved. Folsom, as we talked about, their skill group. When I talked to Coach Daugherty about their skill group, who's going to start where, he listed off literally 8 receivers and 4 running backs, and he said they're all going to play. So they got plenty of skill. Walker Lyons, their top tight ends, going to Stanford. Rico Flores Jr. going to Notre Dame. They got another tight end, Mason Norberg, who's another big kid who's going to see the ball a lot and saw a lot last year. Outside receivers with Rico is Brian Ray. He's a DJ Brown. And then the slot receivers, Greco Carrillo, who's got a scholarship to San Jose State, and Ontario Smith. So they got plenty of guys to catch the ball. Center Mason Starkey and Lucas Hardiman return to the offensive line. They have a small line this year. Smaller line. Last year they had some big kids. But this year they're all around. Well, I think 260 is the highest lineman, so they're going to be quicker and faster. But they're not really concerned about it. The lack of size compared to past years. Defensively, their D-backs are their strength. They've got, just like their wideouts, they've got 7 or 8 D-backs who are going to see action, including Flores, depending on the opponent. Carrillo again as a quarterback. DJ Brown's a quarterback. Cade Dutton is a quarterback. And Joseph Chavez and Slade Wilson and Washington returning the defensive end. He's going to make some noise this year too. So Folsom, they got a strong squad. Yeah, did you get a vista too? Yeah. Vista. I already talked about their offense. Let me just go defense. Again, their linebackers, who last year linebackers were their weakness because they were younger. Now they're all seniors, and coach really likes how they're playing. Hunter Williams in the middle with Wes Bonar and Cruz Santero at the other outside spot. So linebackers are going to be the strength of the defense, and 2 good defensive ends, and Max Voda and Samuel Hutchinson. The key with the defense will be how the secondary comes along. Coach Landis says they're looking good right now, and if they continue to progress, the defense is going to be much better than it was last year. And that's what Vista needs to go further, because they only scored 6 more points than they allowed last year, and that was mainly defense. So that's my teams.
All right, Aaron, do you want to kind of talk about what you're expecting from your teams this year?
Yeah, I've got a lot. So I've got 11 teams. So I'm gonna go through first off Lincoln and 12 Bridges. Start with the Lincoln area teams, and then kind of go from there. For Lincoln, I think the key for them is going to be defense, defense, defense. Coach Berg, when he joined that program last year, coordinator before he became the head coach for Lincoln. And that defense last year was insanely solid. They almost shut out every opponent in the league except for Ponderosa, which that game went to overtime. So I think that it's going to be defense is going to be a big key for them. Like I said, I think they're going to be solid when it comes to their secondary. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens when it comes to their linebackers and up front. If they're even halfway solid on that, I think they will be a very competitive team this year. But I do expect them to have some struggles early on. I think that Yuba City game that they have, which is going to be the second week of the season on the 26th, is going to be a big wake-up call to really see what that's to 12 Bridges. Once again, I think the big key for them is just building experience on the varsity level, because they haven't gotten to see varsity speed yet. So I think that's the number one thing, is just building experience for next year, but also, just remain competitive in games. They've got a lot of talent on that team. They've got Whit Cruz, who's going to be their quarterback. He is 6'6" as a junior. So he's a big kid with a lot of size. They've got some really fast players when it comes to their Wade. They've got solid defensive players when it comes to the line, such as Daniel Rask, linebacker. I think that they will be, like I said, a competitive team, but it's all about just building experience at the varsity level. So that's it for the Lincoln teams. Getting into some of the teams I cover in the South Placer area, for Rockland, I think the key is just, for them, compete well in the SFL. Obviously the non-league schedule is going to be, as long as they handle their business, it should just come down to that Rockland Folsom game. So I think handle your business is just the biggest key for them, and they'll be fine. And stay away from the injury bug. That's a big one as well. For Whitney, I think it's skate your way through the season and be competitive in the playoffs. And that's always been under Zach McNally. Their big thing is, the SFL is very challenging, but just work your way through that season. Give yourselves a chance before they lost in the section championship. I think that should be for them this year too, is get some wins against some big teams. Understand that, hey, you might not be able to take down the Rocklands and the Folsoms of the world, but just remain competitive and give yourselves a winning record and a chance in the postseason. Granite Bay, I think the thing for them is just going to be how well can CJ Herring run the ball, and how well can that offense play and put up points. They're going to be playing some really tough opponents, and when it comes to their non-league schedule as well. So I think for Granite Bay, Valley Christian, once again for them, it's gonna be try to get 4 wins again. That's the number one thing, is you want to have progression as a program. And when they had that 4-win season in 2008, as I mentioned, they had many years of just being a 1 or 2 win team, and they've got enough talent on this squad to win a lot of games, to win the games necessary. They've got talent to beat teams like Mira Loma, like they're going to play week 1. They've got talent to beat teams like Western Sierra. Just remain competitive as a program and try to get a 4-win season once again. Western Sierra, get back on the board and get yourself back in the win column. I know last season was very challenging and difficult for them. They did not put up a lot of points. They've got Ethan Ivans returning, Jacob Fletcher returning. I think that getting a couple wins as a program will be big for Otis Washington and that program going forward. So just get back in the win column is a key for them. For Roseville, it's going to come down all there to watch. Again, I didn't get a lot of a chance to talk about Roseville earlier. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot too, I think, at 5-5. But Brandon Graydon was a two-way player last year when it came to receiving and when it came to the run game. He's going to be taking over his brother's job at quarterback this year. And I think it's going to be how well he can manage that offense will drive them to success. I got two other teams for West Park. It's going to be senior leadership. Senior leadership is going to be key for them. They've got Braden Chenault, my apologies. They've got DeVell Barksdale at quarterback, who's going to be huge for them when it comes to the run game. He's going to be a good two-way player when it comes to the run and pass game. Far that team goes. And then for Oakmont, it's kind of, in my opinion, it's a rebuilding year for them. I know that they've got a new coach in Jake Messina, and they want to be a competitive team, but they had a lot of seniors last year that left, and so I think this year with the large junior class, it's just going to be building experience for next season and kind of rebuilding. I do expect Kyle Stahlecker and George Segma to lead that team to success. I don't feel like they're going to get much more than 4 wins this season. Go ahead and prove me wrong, Oakmont. But I think it's going to be more of a rebuilding year for them.
I agree completely. And now
kind of running low on time. We got about 4 minutes left on recording.
We got about 4 minutes left on recording, so I will
schools in my area.
Starting
out with
schools in my area.
Placer, I think Placer is the favorite.
I think Placer is the favorite.
They just have
FEL, they just have a load of weapons this year. I mean, some newcomers, Baylor,
Josh Craycraft are going to be 2 big names
for them. Costa Alexic,
first on
last
year.
year.
He ended up coming up because of an injury to a
and
player.
they ended up taking that starting role
their running back number 2. Another big one is
Isaiah Hanley. Isaiah Hanley did not play last year due to injury, but talking to Joey Montoya, he said he's the best athlete in the entire school. So that's a player to really keep an eye on. They just have so many weapons, and their key is to get off to a hot start. I know last year they started out with that 0-5 thing. They won the final 4 games to make the playoffs, but just get off to that hot start and utilize your weapons and don't be predictable. You have so many players you can attack with.
Just don't kind of get set in with one guy. Another big
one to watch
with
Placer is Xander Esty, O-lineman who just committed to Oregon State.
He is going to be a force.
Moving on to Del Oro, their big thing is going to be the running back duo of Kaiasia and Sam Murray. Both of those guys are going to make a lot of noise this year. Kaiasia actually said his goal is to be the best running back in the section, and he has the talent to do it. He's just got to find a way to get it done. I think he definitely can. Their offensive line is going to be big too, running behind Akil Martinson. That guy is going to be a problem at tackle on both sides of the ball, D tackle and offensive tackle. He'll be a big name. Their big thing is Del Oro just needs to win the games they're supposed to win. They have a brutal schedule. Clayton Valley Charter, Menlo Atherton. They're opening up the whole SFL. They want to make the playoffs. They want to make the playoffs. They need to win the games they're supposed to. Moving on to Colfax, they're running under new head coach Jason Stowers. I touched on that earlier. River Roach is going to be a key for them this year. River Roach started a playoff game last year for the Falcons with only 3 varsity practices under his belt.
Now as a junior, he's kind of got a lot more in him.
Stowers says he has a lot more confidence in him. I think he's going to be a key. Kenny Gold and Amadeus Alcala are going to be huge, both third-year starters for the Falcons. Cannon Tomlin as well. He was a soccer player, converted in. He's going to be used as a Debo Samuel type. Malachi Thompson is going to be a force as well. Colfax is going to be a solid team this year. Moved on to Bear River. It's going to be the Joey Knox and Anders Torgerson show, really. Both star players last year coming back. Bear River only had their 2nd losing season in school history last season.
I think that they're going to be a much improved team. Problem is they're going to be playing in a much improved league. And last but not least, Forest Hill. This is a team that is angry with how their season ended last year. They went 8-2, their best record in a decade. Finished second in the SNAL, but they ended up making the playoffs. But Delta, who they beat and finished third, did. A lot of anger on that. They won't. A lot of anger on that. The coaches won't tell you it, but you can tell they're all kind of thinking that the players will unfinished business, and they have unfinished business with how last season ended. Happy with how last season ended. I think Forest Hill is going to be a much improved team. We're on less than a minute left to go. Can we kind of maybe end this with what game are you guys going to be at week 1, Aaron?
I'm going to be at 12 Bridges, and I'm expecting 27-21, 12 Bridges against McClatchy.
Okay, what about you, Matt?
I want to see how good this Oak Ridge team is off the bat. I'm going to be at Cosumnes Oaks. I think Oak Ridge beat them last year. I think they'll beat them again this year. Let's go 35-14.
All right, I'm going to be at Placer Casa Roble. The offensive line was different last year. It will be this year. I think Placer wins this one 35-27. Thank you all for tuning in to the first ever episode of the Gold Country Media Sports Jam.
And we are looking forward to the next one. Have a good day, everyone.
Take care, guys.